Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment as well if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. All kinds of things coming up on the show today. Our friend and colleague and host of Amicus, a law review on Saturdays from 9 to 11 across the network, Jim Santel, is going to be joining us. Donald Trump not happy with the Federalist Society. Who have helped him pick his all the judges he's been appointing.
What world do we live in when a Republican's like, I don't like the Federalist Society right now?
I know. So among many other things, we will talk about that with Jim Santel coming up after the 9:30 news. In hour number 2, 10:35, the Acme Packing Company sports guru Paul Noonan will be here to talk all things sports. Brewers with another big win yesterday.
Another win.
9-1.
Yeah, 6-1, I believe. And this is 9 victories out of the last 10 games.
Like to see that. Like to see that. We will wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today, it is the Supermarket Sweep Edition. Stick around for that. And as always, if you have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at janesays@civicmedia.us, JANESAYS, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. And don't forget to make sure you have the Civic Media app, because our statewide Text to Win Scotty Summer Contest is underway through next Friday.
Yes.
So you have 4 chances every day for the next 2 weeks in the 7, 11, 2, and 4 p.m. hours to listen for the keyword. And once you get that, you text it in via the Civic Media app, and you're in the running for either $100 in cash or a pair of Milwaukee Brewers club level tickets. And then you're in the running for the grand prizes as well, either a vacation getaway in Baraboo or Wisconsin Dells.
That's a tough choice.
I know.
That's a tough choice.
I know.
I would love those club level tickets too, because
they're good seats.
They're great seats. They're so
really
comfy.
good
They're squishy. They're so squishy.
Winners have included Mark from Hayward, listening on WHSM, and Paul in Green Bay, streaming on WGBW. Congratulations, guys. Thank you so much for listening. You could be among the many, many winners. Your next chance to text in that keyword coming up after 11 o'clock in the Tom Hartman Show.
You're going to actually listen for us, me or Jane, giving you that keyword. So when you hear us giving you that keyword, that's your
clue.
Key word to text us.
Download the Civic Media app. It is completely and absolutely free. No budget here in Wisconsin. Whatever. State budget. This from WPR. Sean Johnson with the byline. State budget talks called off as Governor Tony Evers and Republican lawmakers hit an impasse. This means Republicans who run the legislature will write their next budget themselves, which they want to do anyway.
Yeah, they made it very clear when Governor Evers presented his biennium budget to them, to the people, and they said, you know what this really needs? A lot of empty spaces. Let's go ahead and clear out anywhere between 1 to 612, and that's the specific number that they cleared out of the budget because they thought that they don't want to fund those things.
No.
A lot of those being social programs, things that help people.
Things that they heard about when they took the Joint Finance Committee around Wisconsin and had 4 meetings around the state, where the vast majority of people said what they were concerned about was funding education, taking care of health care,
and childcare.
Yeah. No, we're not going to do now.
We don't want policy to be mixed up with finance, is what they said to defend the reason why they cut those things out. That's a really, really cowardly and stupid thing to say. We don't want to combine finance with policy. How do you think
it's
policy
all
is,
policy?
What's that word? Financed. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
It just goes back to the whole thing we've been talking about for, it feels like years. It's probably decades. It feels like decades. They cannot give Tony Evers a win.
For anything.
And there are things that are that have come to that state house besides the budget that have been seen as bipartisan that the popcorn king won't bring to a vote, won't allow to happen, has spoken horribly about. I mean, we just played a couple days ago a video of him speaking to Luann Byrd where he says Obamacare is free. This is the guy in charge of the assembly right now, and they just will not give anyone an inch. No wins for anyone, and that includes me and you.
Well, they want wins.
Yeah.
It's just not for folks, run-of-the-mill folks.
No.
If you're not a donor, do you really need anything?
Yeah, if you're not
Do I really have to give you anything if you don't give me any money? Billionaires,
millionaires, landlords, you name it, business owners, they get the wins. They get the cuts. They get the tax cuts. They get the...
It's interesting that you mentioned landlords because I was listening on the way in to Pat Kreitlow, Mornings with Pat Kreitlow from 6 to 9.
There it is.
6 to 9 a.m. And he mentioned as well that Wisconsin's legislature has a very high number of lawmakers who are landlords.
Yep. Both sides, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah, both sides. Yeah. Absolutely. Not just one side. But it does make you wonder if we should be allowing those people, therefore, to write legislation affecting things that they own. But I guess that's just the way it works. Anyway, we have no budget, even though top Republican leaders who have often criticized, they jump on Governor Evers all the time for not engaging with them. He's not nice enough to them. But all of them have called their budget talks up to this point good faith. It was all good faith.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't.
Also, I'm just going to put it out here. I've met Tony Evers. I know people who know Tony Evers. Tony Evers is a delightful human being. And just because he's not easy to, quote unquote, talk to doesn't mean he's... I don't buy that. And if anything, if he's not easy to talk to, maybe he's frustrated because all the items that he put in there, you want to strip out. So maybe you're not the top of his list right now. Or
of placating.
Maybe he's not sitting there going to give you 20 minutes of back and forth chummy banter. He wants to get to work. But this is about the health and wealth of Wisconsinites, specifically the children. And they want to rip out everything that helps kids, helps family, helps and helps businesses, by the way, because these are investments. Investments, not worthless, mindless, fraudulent
safety
spending.
Nets.
This is about investing in the state, investing in the people, and investing in the future, which have ROI and have been studied over and over, that when states invest in their people, the economy grows, morale grows, health gets better, and just productivity rises. So I guess what did you say, Jane? The budget now just has the words the and we'll finance the paper clips.
Yeah, and we'll see what they're going to fill in between all the ands and the thes.
Yeah.
I guess what jumps out at me from this article again from WPR is the governor's office said the governor was ready to accept the GOP proposed tax cuts, including an income tax cut targeting middle class and working families, and the elimination of income taxes for certain retirees. But Republicans couldn't agree on the governor's priorities, which included money for child care, K-12 schools, and the University of Wisconsin system.
Yeah. And some of those tax cuts, by the way, they're heavily defended by right-leaning think tanks, but economically, they don't make sense when you're cutting taxes for retired folks. It doesn't have the economic impact they want. It looks good on a headline. It looks good on paper.
And it sounds good to seniors.
But there are other ways of allowing seniors to keep their money. But this is, to me, hey, seniors, come here once. How would you like to not pay taxes after you retire? I would be immediately hesitant on that one. What kind of economic impact does that have on the rest of the state then? What tax revenue is the state in a state that's already anemic in their spending of their money? What's going to happen to the money that I save? Or let me rephrase that. If I'm not paying my taxes in for my retirement,
right?
How are things going to then be funded?
Tax cuts for the rich.
Well, then
that fixes everything, Greg.
You're right, Jane.
Fixes everything. You know what?
I'm going to go. You're right. We're done. I think we've done everything we can do.
Easy fix. Robin Voss, Assembly Speaker, and Representative Mark Bourne of Beaver Dam, the co-chair of the legislature's Budget Committee, thanked Governor Evers and his staff for trying to reach consensus. Quote, Assembly Republicans remain open to discussions with Governor Evers in hopes of finding agreement. However, after meeting until late last night and again this morning, it appears the two sides remain far apart. Yeah, because Governor Evers would like to, I don't know, again, address our child care issues, our health care issues, our education issues. The only thing that the Republicans, at least from what I can recall, their only platform is cutting taxes for rich people.
And demonizing any sort of spending for folks who need it. Programs. I mean, once again, in that video with Robin Voss and Luann Bird, the way he speaks about, like, we have too much welfare. Well, what does that even, what do you mean by welfare? Do you mean, like, you don't like helping poor people? Then why? And she asked that question, why can't you help? Oh, we spend too much. Okay. Prove it.
Well, and again, it's now they're coming back to municipalities and saying, like the lead issue.
Yes.
The lead pipes issue. It's like, well, yes, we have this $4 billion surplus we're still sitting on, but you guys got to figure it out yourselves.
Yeah.
Wisconsin senior Senator Ron Johnson said that about the lead pipe issue, which is not just a city of Milwaukee problem.
Nope.
This is a statewide problem. And Ron Johnson has said, yeah, well, send it back to the state. You guys better figure it out.
Yeah.
Pull yourselves up by your lead bootstraps.
And yeah, if the government, if the Health and Human Services Department is going to cut lead abatement programs for this state, not the city, but the state, and it's being left to our state house in Madison, well, those kids and those families are going to have lead because the state is not going to do anything.
No.
They won't spend a dime, and maybe their church can help them. Maybe they can snap their finger and magically away. It's sad because watching our elected officials who are in power openly, actively, and unabashedly not care about its people is embarrassing. And I know for a fact at least 3 people at the top of my brain who said they will never either move here or move back to this state because of the way they treat the citizens and the way specifically they treat women with regard to the 1849 abortion ban. But that's another conversation. But just our reputation now is terrible in this state because it's just not, it's backwards.
Although we did put up the big cheddar wall. We were successful in stopping Elon.
Oh, yes. Well, and that's the thing is that, folks, is what we're talking about. And that's how you can do something. You can go to myvote.wi.gov because we know you have a voice. You've shown it to us.
Yes.
We've seen it in action before.
It works.
Call your reps and tell them we want a budget and we want a fair budget and we want a budget that works together.
And like childcare.
Yes.
Let's work on childcare and do something about that. We're going to continue this conversation. We have someone on the live stream with a comment actually on the text line. We will come back with that. We'd love to hear from you. 855-752-4842. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, the board lord, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter, talking about the lack of a budget in Wisconsin after talks called off between Governor Evers and Republican lawmakers because they can't get anywhere. So the Republicans are going to write up their own budget.
Yeah, totally.
It's just perfectly
I'm
fine.
sure it'll be great.
Yes, I'm sure we'll all agree with everything in it. Before we went to the break, we did have Phil from Mount Pleasant texting in, why don't we address Robin Voss's issues by boycotting his popcorn business? He does own a popcorn company in Burlington,
Yeah.
from what I have found. And he is a landlord in Whitewater, I know.
Mm-hmm. He loves to protect landlords. I've been boycotting his popcorn for nearly 48 years because I've never had it once. I'm okay with that.
You're good with that?
Yeah.
Don't
Good.
feel deprived?
No.
If you would like to join the conversation about this lack of a budget, again, because Governor Evers is pushing for more money for education, more money for health, more money for childcare. Republicans, not so much. 855-752-4842. Cassandra from New London is on the line. Good morning, Cassandra. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So this budget thing, as I've mentioned before, just irritates the heck out of me. However, we just had a town hall with my rep, Dave Murphy. I no longer feel bad about calling these people out. But Dave Murphy, Rachel Cabral Guevara is our senator. And there were suggestions given to them if they really didn't want to take out of our surplus to fund public schools and special education and childcare. And, while there are some of these, more affluent school districts, why don't we freeze their funding to add funding to the rural schools? Oh, well, no, we can't do that. How are we going to explain that to all the rich people? Okay. What about, why can't we tax the people that are making more than $1 million in the state? And Dave Murphy's response is, well, then all the rich people are going to leave the state. And it's okay, do you have any proof of that?
Right.
No, they can't give any proof of any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They can't.
And that's the thing is we couldn't. What about all the regular people who might want to leave the state and go to Minnesota or Iowa or Michigan or Illinois, where there's lots happening in all of those states? Cassandra, if I'm not mistaken, you're the one who told us that you went to one of the 4 Joint Finance Committee meetings and waited. I believe you said 9 hours. At the end of when you finally reached there, you said well, everything has been said and you're going to do nothing.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, I just basically told them. I said, listen, you guys know what we want. And it's shameful that we can't even pay for special education for our public schools, but you're willing to bend over backwards to take care of all of the private schools and pay for vouchers.
And Cassandra, when you said that to them, I'm just curious if, did anybody even flinch? Did that make any of them look the least bit embarrassed?
Not particularly. There were, a couple of the just gentlemen that were up there, and they just, I got one little smirk from who I think is the chairman, whose name I don't recall, but just basically smirks and just oh, well, thanks. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you for waiting for 9 hours.
Adorable little opinions you all have. Thanks for coming out.
Appreciate it, Cassandra. Thank you so much for checking in. And thank you for going to those things and doing that stuff. I can only imagine your frustration, but I think if we don't turn out for that stuff, that makes it even worse.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, in case you want to call them, because they might not represent you, but they are the co-chairs of the Joint Finance Committee. That is Senator Howard Markline of Spring Green and Representative Mark Bourne of Beaver Dam. Both of them, whether one or both gave you that, I get that. They love to say we heard from the people, but they don't listen to the people.
No, they don't
at all,
and that's why. When we had Todd Alba on a couple of weeks ago, I think they should be required to put their phones in a bag
yeah,
before they start he listening to constituents, so we know that they're actually listening to people who waited like Cassandra for 9 hours.
Can I just say something that I've always wanted to see, whether it's a situation like this or someone testifying in front of a joint committee or something like that? When you see those lawmakers who are looking at their phone or looking away or talking to someone, I just want to see someone go, hey, right here, I'm talking right now. You asked me to be here.
My eyes are up here.
My ears are up here, buddy. I'm sure whatever Twitter has right now is real enthralling, but listen to me. Like, I just want to see that happen because, you know what? It's really disrespectful.
It is disrespectful.
It's disrespectful.
And they should be, I'm sorry, but they should be embarrassed. But again, I think shame and embarrassment is something that is disappearing now from our society.
Well, they get to weaponize that situation and say, look what this person did, and I'm an American, and I'm here for you.
And therefore it's justified?
Oh, absolutely. And they'll have at least a small cadre of people saying, yeah, what a jerk. How dare you speak to a congressman or a senator or something? Like, how dare you do that? Because they're being disrespectful. And I thought we were about respect here. I don't know. I'm going on an old man rant now, and I apologize.
And
Shane.
stay off his lawn. By
Get
the
off
way.
my lawn. I just mowed it. Oh, that reminds me. We're having some work done today. That's right.
Do you have landscapers?
Not landscapers. We have our every quarter or every other month we have people come by and spray for bugs.
Oh,
We got to make sure the dog doesn't get on it.
yeah, that's true too. All right, we have news coming up next. When we return, there was an odd.
I love it.
Side track there. Jim Santel will be here. We're going to talk all things legal. He is the host of Amicus, a law review on Saturdays across the network from 9 to 11. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Good morning, Jim. How do things sound?
Kelvin, I am doing well, and you're sounding good. How am I?
You sound fantastic.
Okay, good. Ready to roll whenever your friends there are also. So I'll just stay put.
Hey, Shijon, are you there? Are you there? Yeah. Sorry, I was making fun of Trump right there.
Okay. We're all developing Trump impersonations. I found myself trying to do that one the other day myself. So good thing. How proud we must be as Americans, right?
Indeed.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, the board lord, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine, where you can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on a live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. He hosts Amicus, a law review, on Saturday mornings across the network from 9 to 11. Our friend and colleague Jim Santel is here. Good morning, Jim. How you doing?
Jane, Greg, always good to be with you, especially at a time, June. Of course, we're anticipating our Supreme Court once again kicking into high gear, and we can only anticipate what's coming next, can't we?
Yeah. Well, it seems lately like every once in a while the Supremes will issue a ruling that I agree with, and it's like, well, that seems pretty reasonable. And then 2 weeks later, they come out with something that I think is absolutely abhorrent. And it's like, yeah, that's who you really are. That's kind of who those guys are.
And it's not just frustration about emotional responses. It's basic legal inconsistency, isn't it? You look at similar situated circumstances and different results. Is that the rule of law in America today? I guess it is.
Well, and then there's the whole shadow docket, which is a whole nother discussion that we're not going to get into today, but we can talk about that at another time, Jim, because Jim joins us every Thursday at this time. But I wanted to start off a little bit with talking about President Trump is not happy with Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. My goodness gracious. He had a major meltdown about... He's not happy with Amy Coney Barrett, essentially, is what it comes down to, because she is not his judge. And he appointed all three. He appointed Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. And I am assuming, just assumed, they're my judges. They're going to do everything that I want. And that's not working out to be the way he thought.
It is not. How disappointing that must be for my president.
Kidding.
Right? To discover that, gosh, you put somebody on the Supreme Court and they take an oath to not him, not to people, not to the White House, but let's all say it together, to the American people and the Constitution of the United States. And they begin to look at things, not from a different perspective, but they recognize not only their place in history, but the magnitude of their assignment that has been given to them, which is to do right, to do justice, deliver the rule of law, and all those other important things. The independence of justices is not previously unseen in America. We've talked about David Souter before, and we talked John Paul Stevens, all these folks appointed by supposedly conservative presidents, assumed to be conservative, and they drift when they see the real world, if you will, from that vantage point. They drift to the center, if not to the left. And again, we have our president recently melting down, as you said, Jane, because the Federalist Society, not exactly a bastion of liberal viewpoints, has apparently betrayed him somehow and giving him these lists of names of people who will be reliably on his payroll. And he's no longer excited about that. Stunning. Stunning.
But the thing is that the Federalist Society, I mean, they made it very clear when Trump got into the presidency in the first term. They're not about anything other than overturning Roe v. Wade. And I think that the Federalist Society, those names were about Roe v. Wade because they knew they would overturn Roe v. Wade, even though they lied in their confirmation hearings when they said that that was codified law, that was already decided, no reason to go back. I don't think the Federalist Society cared about anything else they did after the fact. Because, I mean, they're the Federalist Society. Those guys are going to be in power. They're going to have their money. They're going to have their influence forever. So for them, it was about Roe v. Wade, period. And they delivered. And at that point, Federalist Society is probably like, we're good. And they don't have to care after that. So, but Trump, yes, you're right. He thinks they belong to him. And they obviously don't read the history books when it comes to Supreme Court justices.
Absolutely. Federalist Society, just a point of personal observation, believe it or not, it was created. This is how old I am. When I was in law school at the University of Chicago, my colleagues, my classmates got together one night and began to put this together way back then at the University of Chicago, the campus there in Hyde Park.
That's where it started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even the people who are there to this day trace their roots back to that. At the time, we thought it was, well, it's an interesting perspective. You'll not be surprised to learn that I did not join that meeting, but there it began. It has certainly become a major institution in America, regardless of how you feel about their politics. And it has been viewed, Greg, absolutely as this bastion of conservative thought and on privacy rights, and otherwise advancing very generally, as you've indicated, a conservative agenda, and that what they say will be followed by their people, and kind of giving direction even to the way the language and the debate proceeds in America. The Federalist Society was always the bastion. When the schism happens between now our president and the Federalist Society, you know that America is drifting in some very interesting directions. The other piece of this wonderful article, I suspect you're going to post on your site here about that drift. They also make reference, of course, this comes in part in the wake of the decision by the International Court of Trade, basically saying you can't do all these tariffs, these levies, Mr. President.
It's not.
And again, Donald
purview.
Trump responds to that and says, "You've got to be kidding me," and goes on off of that. Interestingly, there's more reason, it turns out, for Donald Trump, and he's not reading briefs, but we know as well that there was this fiery brief that was written also, an amicus brief to that very court. And it's signed by people like Michael Mukasey, the former Attorney General, Steve Calabrese, the head of the Federalist Society, many of the George Allen, John Danforth, Chuck Hagel, all these bastions, these icons,
conservatism.
Right? Exactly. And there's sign, and also I should say, for purposes of being fair about this, Democrats and liberals as well. Harold Koh, the former dean of the Yale Law School, all these people basically say they're not taking a position on policy when it comes to Trump. The levies and the tariffs there, but they basically say the power to tax, regulate commerce, shape the nation's economic course remains with, let's all say it together, Congress. And I love this language. They cannot drift silently into the hands of the president through inertia, inattention, or creative readings of statutes never meant to grant such authority. That conviction is not partisan, they say. It is constitutional and strikes at the heart of the case. Donald Trump reads that. Again, if he hasn't already, somebody maybe should just read that paragraph to him, maybe if they want more things on Truth Social. But that is a declaration of independence from not only the Federalist Society, but all these other mainstream conservatives and liberals saying, you know what, this is too much. And it should be read, frankly, not the entire brief, but just the excerpts by everybody who's thinking, gee, are we just being partisan when we attack the president? No, we've got reputable, longstanding, historically well-founded conservative and liberal views saying to him that you cannot do this. Unconstitutional, Mr. President. Can't be making him happy.
Jim Santel is our guest. He's host of Amicus, a law review Saturdays across the network from 9 to 11 a.m. And we're talking about this rift now between President Trump and Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. And when this happened, Leonard Leo must have been going, what? Because, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but the Federalist Society has been a pipeline for Republican presidents, essentially, to appoint judges for decades.
Absolutely. And frankly, some of the criticism from the left has been just that maybe this organization has too much influence on conservative or Republican presidents. And why should they basically give the president, even while they're campaigning for office, here's the list of appeals court judges, state Supreme Court judges who might in fact be good on your Supreme Court. And the question was not so much, should we do this, but just who among these people should in fact be selected. There was almost the pipeline could not be a better description for it, Jane. That's the way that this has worked. The notion, once again, that pipeline is presumably now cracked, to continue the analogy here, and that the president is now going someplace else to find others. What is that group going to look like, right?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
And that's the thing I just thought about while you were talking about, Jim, is like the Federalist Society has enough problems as it is when it comes to upholding democracy and their beliefs, how you do such a thing. Where is he going to go next?
Right.
I mean, is he just going to go to like the internet?
Chuckster's School of Law.
Yeah.
And tiling.
I've been talking to Alex Jones, and he has some great ideas on Supreme Court justices.
The other thing that I've seen, though, Jim, and the Bulwark had a big article about this, is that Trump's criticism now of the Supreme Court justices he appointed is giving pause to some judges who might have been considering retirement. Mm-hmm. And now even conservative judges are going, I don't know that I want to leave because I don't trust who he's going to replace me with.
Mm-hmm. Right. And again, for what it's worth, the great article made reference to, it's a wonderful article. Everybody should read it. It's not that long. It's accessible. and does make that very important point. You've got conservative justices who might have been waiting to see whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump becomes our next president, so that, again, a conservative mainstream president could perhaps appoint a successor. I can go into retirement knowing that my seat at least will be followed by somebody else who kind of follows my same principles. No more. They're saying that those kinds of folks, if they are in fact appointed, again, federal judges, as we know, for life. Yes, they've got to be confirmed by the Senate, but they're there for life. You appoint some 45-year-olds and they will be there for 40 years, right?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
they're looking at that and saying, is this the America that I signed on for? Again, as conservatives, liberals, it doesn't matter, right? These fundamental principles are so important. And so it may well be that Donald Trump, this is one of the great legacies that any president provides, right? Is, you just mentioned about the Supreme Court, but also judges in the appellate courts, the district courts, where the most of the law in America is made. He may not have all of those great numbers of vacancies that he anticipated. And you may get conservatives and certainly liberals and some people in between who are just going to hang around for another 44 months or so and say, gee, we'll see what happens next. It's a very good point.
One of the big claims we get from people who disagree with us here is that they're accusing them of being activist liberal judges. And I always have to go back and say, you're talking about people who have been appointed by 5 different presidents over the past 40 years, and their only interest, their fiduciary responsibility in their job is to uphold the Constitution of the United States and make sure the laws reflect that therein. And it's just surprising to me that anyone who dares in any way, shape, or form on the bench look at it from that point of view is automatically an activist judge, where I would contend maybe acting in a way that Trump wants you to, as far as the law, that makes you the activist judge, because you're going against everyone.
The Constitution.
Yeah.
Right. You're making decisions then, not only contrary to history and precedent, but frankly, Jane, as you just indicated, Greg, also, it's you look at the language of the Constitution and you say, how can you square that? And that is, again, the virtue of appointed judges and justices for life is that they are freed up to be true. And some of them, we know some of those judges out there, they go in different directions that may not be consistent, but most of them come to work in the morning and they say, I've got this great responsibility. I don't have to run for office. I don't have to, I can be criticized in the media by Civic Media and Jim Santel and other people, but I got to do what's right. And you think ultimately about your legacy, not only your judicial legacy, but your lifetime legacy, right? We think about John Roberts all the time. How often have we had this discussion, my friends?
Yes.
What does John Roberts think when he gives the president presidential immunity? Is he rethinking some of that? That same Bulwark article kind of suggests that as well, right? That maybe, just maybe, the Supreme Court's having some second thoughts about what it did 11 months ago too, because they're freed up to do what's right. They should be anyway.
Yeah, they should be. We're going to continue our conversation with James. It's Jay Santel.
Jimmy
He's here
James.
from Amicus, a law review. Stay with us. We'll be right back on this Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Cal B on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine, where you can join us. Call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Jim Santel, host of Amicus, a law review Saturdays across the network from 9 to 11, is here to talk all things legal. And Jim, I wanted to touch on this just a little bit. A GOP bill will make it easier to appeal complaints rejected by the Wisconsin Elections Commission. So a lawsuit got thrown out by the Wisconsin Supreme Court in February, a challenge to a mobile voting van that was used in 2022. Now, Republicans have come up with a bill that would make it possible for anyone to appeal decisions rejecting an election complaint.
Right. And they're doing it based upon this notion that standing is the issue. We've talked about this before. In order to go into court, you've got to say that I've been damaged in some way. There's something significant happened to me, typically money, but it can also be employment, other things. That is a fundamental notion for 200 years in America. The reason why the Supreme Court threw out that voting case involving the van was that not so much on the merits, but it was that this particular plaintiff hasn't shown that how it was that this van and the votes that it was encouraging, those kinds of polling, gosh, there's an American concept, right? How does that damage you in particular? Identify that for me. And again, the Supreme Court said, we don't see it. So standing is the basis upon which the Supreme Court said, we're not going to let this go forward. By doing what, again, the governor is never going to sign this legislation, of course, but by doing this, they're trying basically to alter, if you will, the very ways in which our courts across the board apply the law. And at the risk of sounding too hyperbolic here, this is sort of like saying, we're going to legislate so that you can no longer raise equal protection. We don't like that idea anymore. So let's put that in some legislation. Oh, maybe due process, all those kinds of things. It goes beyond just defining a particular civil or even criminal lawsuit. It goes to the core of who we are as Americans, that when you go into court, whether it's Calvin or me or anyone who's listening right now, I've got to be able to tell the judge, this is how I have been harmed. Again, I recognize this is a wonky level of sophistication that many people, regrettably, in Madison will never, ever appreciate. But also be aware of the fact that by doing this, it goes in the opposite direction, too. You get rid of standing with respect to voting issues. And it also means that if I don't like something, even if Jim Santel, Calvin, others don't like something, I may not be harmed by it, but now I can go in and I can challenge things related to the takedown of the box or other things like that. It works in all directions. And against this knee-jerk reaction to an appropriate Supreme Court decision, it won't if it does get passed, the governor will not sign it. But it's another indication of what are we doing? You've talked so much about, again, the budget on this show and things they should be focusing on.
Yes.
Why are we doing this? And it really is contrary to the rule of law. It's contrary to this thing. Again, I always bring props, don't I, to the Constitution, right? Fifth Amendment, 14th Amendment, it's right there. It says due process. It talks about equal protection. It is implicit that standing is there too. You got to show some damage. And they don't get it, or they don't care about it, probably more likely.
To me, Jim, this is yet another example of when Republicans lose in a court of law, or if they lose in the legislature, they find a way to go around it.
Sure,
it's like, all right, we didn't get the results we wanted this way, so now we're just going to go around it and do it this way instead, so we can ultimately get what we want.
Right. And first and foremost, I think that's it. And beyond that, of course, they know that's not going to pass, or neither to get beyond the governor. But the real reason is so that he can send messages to Wisconsinites, perhaps Americans, that, again, we are still very much opposed to what happened in Racine. And look at how we are responding to this. We're responding to it based upon a baseless theory. It's not going anywhere. Forgive me for being so very direct, but this is just plain stupid. And it needs to be understood that way. But their position, of course, is we can issue the press release. Look at this legislation we're passing. We are protecting you. We're protecting voting rights. You're doing none of that. You're desecrating the very process that you're hoping otherwise to promote through voting. It's ridiculous.
And there's two thoughts I have with that. First of all, they love nothing more than when they try to pass through a piece of bunk legislation, it gets vetoed, and then they get to say,
Yes.
well, see, the
Yes.
governor wouldn't
Right.
let it happen.
Yes.
He doesn't care about your safety or security or the elections. And also, as we've discussed just yesterday and far many times before that, is the fact that this is not important. This is not childcare. This is not healthcare. This is not education. This is not taxes. This is not spending. This is about renewing a grudge you had because you lost an election and you're a bunch of petulant babies who just don't want to not get your way.
Well, and I also think it is part of continuing to feed this narrative that the Republicans love that there is so much voter fraud.
Right.
There is no evidence. There has never been any evidence of widespread voter fraud. No matter how much Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, says he knows intuitively, they know intuitively, he says, there's all this voter fraud happening. There's no evidence of that.
There is not. There hasn't been. We know that in the 2020 election. It continues to be out there. This, again, as a way of keeping that issue in mind.
Yes.
Even as in Wisconsin, we go ahead to our next Supreme Court election next year as well. It keeps it fresh. And again, beyond that, you know what? If you really do find that person at some point who's been affected by the fact that there's a van that was promoting the franchise in America, happened to be in Racine, find that person, bring that lawsuit and bring it in and say, you know what? Voter fraud happened here and I was affected by it. That's your remedy. That's your remedy, if at all. Those people aren't out there, of course, but that's the genuine response that Americans on all sides should have to this.
It's called standing.
Yes.
Jim Santel, listen to his show, Amicus, a Law Review, Saturdays 9 to 11 across the network. It is fantastic. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll see you next week.
Always a pleasure, Jane and Craig. Take care.
We have news coming up next. Keep it right here on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Calvin, thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine, where you can always join us. Call and or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. And make sure you have the Civic Media app.
Jane, I have it.
It's absolutely free.
You love that joke.
And it's the only way to enter our statewide Text to Win Scotty Summer Contest, which is underway across the network every day now through next Friday. In the 7, 11, 2, and 4 o'clock hours, you will be given a keyword. You text in that keyword via the Civic Media app, and you are in the running for either $100 cash or a pair of Milwaukee Brewers Club level tickets. And then you're in the running for the grand prize. A little vacation getaway, including gas. I know.
The old man brain in me is just like, and gas?
And gas, I know. Isn't that great? So be listening. Your next chance in our statewide Text to Win Scotty Summer Text to Win contest coming up after 11 o'clock in the Tom Hartman Show. So stick around for that. Wanted to start off talking about childcare. This is a big issue in Wisconsin. It is a big issue around the country. But we started off the show talking about how Governor Evers had agreed to tax cuts that the Republicans had wanted in exchange for more investment in childcare and our university system and our educational system. And the Republicans said no.
Yeah.
So they're going to come up with their own budget. But the one thing that the Republicans have done on the issue of childcare, they want to expand childcare tax credit for employers. Which is great.
Yeah.
Again, they talked about this in 9 to 5 from the 1980s.
I love that movie.
Where employers were going to have childcare centers and daycare centers on site.
Yes.
So parents wouldn't have to do it outside of work. And then your kids are right there and you can pick them up after you're done and all of those things. That's from the 1980s.
Yeah.
We're not there.
No.
And so far, according to the Wisconsin Examiner, childcare, small business owners, small business owners, for one thing, don't have the funds.
No.
If you're a small business, can you afford to set up a daycare center or a childcare in your facility?
A small business, most likely not. I mean, there's a whole bunch of factors that come into play here, I imagine. First of all, I imagine you have to apply to have it be done. Like, your business and you're zoned for business if you're in a building. If you own your building,
there's that too.
If you rent your building, you then have to talk to your landlord, I'm sure, and start there. I mean, the steps of just going from once again, it's Wisconsin Republicans thinking, well, we'll just do this and then it'll be fixed. No, it's not just, I talk about this all the time, investment. It's not just an investment in money. It's an investment in time, energy, ideas, conversation, planning, all these things. Fine, you want small businesses to open up their own daycare centers or have the ability, then you need to make sure there is a pipeline from idea to execution to completion, and that way they can do all the things to get this money. Because if that's the case, if I'm a business, let's say I own a business and I employ 15 people,
right,
and we're in a building that we rent, okay, do I just say, all right, that room's childcare, where's my money? Like, you're just throwing an idea out there and there's nothing behind it.
Well, right, again, and I think that's a really interesting point. If they had some kind of program to help small businesses navigate this, because I have to imagine as well that you're talking about a change in your insurance coverage.
Absolutely.
If you're going to have childcare on site at your small business.
And I'm assuming that if you're going to have childcare on your site, you're going to have at least one, if not more, trained, qualified, licensed professionals who are there. You have to pay them, or at the very least, what you do is you say, hey, I have a room that's X square feet. I wanted to open up for childcare for my employees' children. And I rent it out, the space. I collaborate with a daycare center or a daycare provider, and they rent the space, and they can do what they want. But I still have to worry about their insurance.
Yep.
I still have to worry about my insurance.
Yep.
And if, let's just also, we don't even know what the parameters of this tax credit would be. Who knows? Maybe I don't have enough to qualify for it. How about this, Jane? And I'm just spitballing, throwing it out there.
Sure, throw it out.
I'm not a professional politician guy. What if we take that same idea for a tax credit and we give it to the daycare centers that are businesses here in the state?
You mean the already existing businesses?
Correct.
In the business of childcare?
Yes, the thousands upon thousands of daycares that are in the state. What if we extended tax credits, tax cuts, incentives for them to be able to pay their people more, to just be able to write off certain things? What if we made it easier? I'm just here for small business. Republicans, you love business. What if we did that instead of just throwing out the idea of a tax credit for quote unquote small businesses? Because also, if I'm running a business, I don't want the headache of a daycare. You don't want the headache of anything. As you said, uncertainty is the killer of business. And if all of a sudden I have to worry about that, it just doesn't make, you're creating a whole new bump in the road instead of just saying, oh, tax credits, let's give those to the daycares. Done.
855-752-4842. If you are a small business owner, we would love to hear from you. I would love to know what your opinion is on this. Again, legislation introduced by Senator Howard Markline, Republican from Spring Green, and Representative Karen Hurd. Another Republican circulated this bill where they want to expand a child care tax credit for employers. But again, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of businesses that are jumping on this.
Yes.
Again, if you're a small business owner, we'd love to hear from you and what you think about this. 855-752-4842. The other thing that's being talked about now, James Langford, who's a Republican from Oklahoma, was on cable this morning, again, talking about the budget bill.
Yeah.
Which numerous agencies have said is going to throw millions and millions of people off of Medicaid.
Yeah.
Mr. Langford's response was, well, we're gonna get them off Medicaid and then they're gonna get a job and they'll get their health insurance through their job. A lot of small businesses can't afford to offer health care to their employers.
No.
To their employees.
No, they can't. And I'm going to speak from experience here. At the Laughing Tap, which is owned by a parent company, one of the things we wanted to do was looking into offering, not forcing, but just having the option of being able to give employees insurance. It is a lot more difficult. It's a lot more red tape, and if you have less amount of employees, it's almost devastatingly expensive.
I would imagine if you have 50 or less employees, it's got to be massively expensive to offer them health insurance. Massively expensive.
So we just have never been able to do that, and it's something we want to do. And yeah, it's once again that idea that, well, they can just go get it from
the private sector will do it.
The uncles and aunts and grandparents can take care of the kid. The businesses can open their own daycare. Like, it's just this thing of like tut hand waving away these problems with what you think is a solution, which shows you do not talk to anyone in the state who goes through the problems that you're in charge of fixing.
Well, and I go back to I feel like there is not enough long-term thought.
No.
About ramifications, about what's going to happen down the road after we do this. I just don't feel like there's a lot of futuristic looking, and maybe it's because, again, my father was a mortician. I started death and worked my way backwards. I would think our lawmakers would be thinking long term, and I just don't think they do.
And even and I want to be very, very clear. I'm not against giving tax credits or tax breaks to companies that want to do the wonderful thing of opening up a daycare for their employees. I've said this before, and I would love to hear from parents here. 855-752-4842. If you had a job offer that was paying you less than the current job you're at, but they offered free daycare, would you take it? And I think they would, because it's so expensive. But how about introducing a package of ideas here? And I've just thought about this right now. Let's say you have a tax credit for businesses that want to start a daycare.
Okay.
You have a set of tax credits, tax incentives, and write-offs for existing daycares in the state. And then you raise the benefit from the child tax credit for his parents. So everyone has the ability to expand, create, or save. You're taking care of businesses from small to large, to the people who are sitting here wondering where their next paycheck is going to pay for their rent, their food, or their childcare. It's not that tough. And you get bipartisan support. I'm sure the governor would sign it before he could even finish reading the rest of the thing. And then from the political side, you go knock on some doors. You make some phone calls. Say, hey, Jane Doe, Bob Q Public, this is what we're doing for you today.
Can't give him any wins, though.
No.
Can't give the Democratic governor any wins.
And when you,
I really do think that's part of it.
I agree, but remember this, and this is something I want to keep saying. When you keep the governor from winning, you keep Wisconsin from winning. That's important, and it is harming the people of the state you claim to represent, and that is disgusting.
During the COVID pandemic, the Evers administration used federal pandemic money to pay child care providers monthly stipends through the Child Care Counts program. That $20 million a month helped providers stabilize child care, increasing workers' pay while keeping care more affordable for families. Evers tried to use $360 million from the 2023-25 budget to continue that Child Care Counts. None of Wisconsin's Republican majority in the legislature got behind that. Lawmakers now writing the new budget. Evers, child care providers, and advocates are campaigning for $480 million to keep that Child Care Counts program going for the next 2 years. Republicans, though, on the Joint Finance Committee removed that proposal, along with more than 600 other items.
When you hold back victory from the governor, you hold back victory from Wisconsin.
Well, and as you said, this affects all of us.
Yep. Yeah. This doesn't just affect parents. It affects their children. It affects the bosses.
It affects their employers. It does.
How are you, like, hey, we've all been there where, and I'm not either going to name names, nor am I going to slam anybody on this, but we've all worked at a place where there was a coworker who was always seeming to have to leave early, come in late, take off because they don't have access to childcare. And that is terrible. You invest in this thing, you invest in childcare, it will pay back in dividends. And that is the absolute proof and truth. So yeah, it's so upsetting to me. It's so upsetting.
He's verklempt.
I'm verklempt.
We're going to continue on the other side and talk about service animals.
I have opinions.
We do have opinions. That's all on the way. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. We will be right back. Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Calby on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine, where you can join us. Call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Before we went to the break, we were talking about childcare in Wisconsin, and the Republicans' only effort to address the childcare crisis is to say businesses should do it. That'll fix it all. Jean from Eau Claire has been waiting very patiently. Good morning, Jean. Thank you for joining us. What do you want to say about this?
Good morning. Outstanding show as usual. Hey, Jean, I'm glad you brought up 9 to 5, the movie.
Yep.
9 to 5
Yeah.
with Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton. Outstanding. This is what these people were saying. We're going back. We're going back. So you really need to check that out. Share it with your friends. Everybody get on there and see that thing. You'll see what went on there. Okay, anyway, another thing, too, is when people go to these meetings and they are treated ugly and totally dismissed with the condescension and the remarks, it is very important for you to start taping this and putting it out there for your neighbors to see, or with your phones. I'm not real tech savvy,
Sure.
but I do know that years ago when we learned from people how to fight back against the city. And what you need to do is you don't have to have big groups and people on the committee and things like that. What you need to do is start talking to different people who are working on this too, sharing information, getting things out in the voice of people. Also taping those meetings of what the questions are and how they answer and their faces. Because when that was going on in the Capitol, when Walker was doing all those things,
Yep.
I couldn't get any information. It's not coming out on your regular media. So people sometimes when they see this and hear it, and I was watching on YouTube what they were doing to the people in the lines and what was happening, I sat and I cried. I watched those all night meetings over on my side of the state because I wasn't getting this information. So you guys share it. That was wonderful. You had that woman on. That is what they're doing, and people need to see that these people really don't care. And that's a great way. You got the means to do it now. I think that would be outstanding. More people need to see it and hear it and get involved whatever way they can. Thank you very much, and you have a good day.
You
Bye.
too, Jean. Thank you so much. And Jean has mentioned before, depending upon where you are in the state, you have more limited choices on where you get your news from.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
there's we have television stations that are dying and struggling and cutting reporters and all of those things. And so it's a challenge. And I think that's why a lot of people do go to social media to look for news.
But there are great resources right here in the state, things like the Wisconsin Examiner, the Pilot and Review. I mean, I'm going to include us as well. We're trying to bring you the stories from around the state that really impact you the most. And I'm going to, what Jeannie has said on the phone, I'm going to encapsulate in a very simple phrase that you have said for a while now, which is share what you know.
Yep.
If you know something, whether it's video, an article, the experience you have, tell a neighbor, talk to a friend, talk to a stranger if it happens to happen, and be respectful, of course. I'm assuming and trusting you'll always be respectful. But it's about sharing what you know, because a politician can stand on a podium and talk, and you can be like, this is nothing. But if you talk to a friend or a coworker and they tell you an experience that you shared or that at the very least you can empathize with, that's where it starts.
Yes.
And then share that with, social media. Share that. I know if the social media can be a vacuum. You're like, I have a tweet, and you throw it into the vacuum of the Twitter sphere.
Yeah.
But it can make a difference. Someone might see it, and then pick up that phone and call your representative, call your state assemblyman, state senator, call your council person, whomever represents you.
If I don't know how to contact the people who are representing me, Greg Bach, it would be really useful if there was one place that I could go to that had all of that information.
Wouldn't it, though?
It would.
We should make one of those. We should do that. I have an idea called the Internet, Jane.
Yes.
It's a series of tubes. No, you can go to myvote.wi.gov. Myvote.wi.gov. You're going to put in all of your information. It
just asks for your address.
Yeah, not all your information, your address. And you will be able to find out who represents you, from the president of the United States down to the city council members that in your local community. You're also going to be able to find out what's going to be on your upcoming ballot. If you have one, you can register to vote. You can request ballots for early voting as long as we still have it. But that is a great website, myvote.wy.gov, and make yourself be heard. Share what you know. And yeah, thank you so much, Jeannie, for calling. We always appreciate talking to you.
And we know Jeannie calls.
Yes.
And I think again, you might feel like you're spitting in the wind and this isn't doing anything, but I do think it's important that our lawmakers know that we're watching them.
Because we spoke to somebody months ago who said that this, and I wish I could remember, I apologize for not remembering his name, but he did say that if lawmakers aren't hearing from us, they're going to take it as, well, I'm doing a good job because no one's calling up mad.
No one's complaining.
No one's
I'm
complaining.
not hearing it. The phones are quiet.
Make those calls. Be respectful to those on the phone with, because they're aides, they're interns, they're low level, and no one needs to be yelled at.
Yeah, don't please. Yeah, just be polite.
Be polite, but be
forceful.
Heartfelt.
Heartfelt is good.
There you
go. Good word from Greg.
Thank you.
Heartfelt, the word of the day. We have news coming up next, and then when we return, we will lighten it up. Audio sorbet. It's all things sports. The Acme Packing Company's Paul Noonan will be here. Brewers with a big win yesterday. We'll talk about baseball and much, much more. That's all coming up. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Might stop to check when I'm a walking, I stop and I'm so strung out, and I'm high as a kite. I just might stop to check you around. Body and beats, I stain my sheets. I don't even know why. My girlfriend, she's at the end. She is starting to cry when I'm
Good morning, Paul. Does everything sound okay?
I think so. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound good.
Good. I just had to do a big update on my machine, so always a dicey situation.
Yes, you never know what's going to happen with the drivers. But we should be all set. We come back in about 90 seconds.
Cool. Sounds good. Boy, am I out of it.
Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jay Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvitini on the board, coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park in Racine, where you can join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Don't forget, you can always subscribe to our Civic Media Digest at civicmedia.us/email. Top podcast hours of all your favorite Civic Media shows, news and commentary from our great Civic Media news team
Yes.
all across the state. And you can actually curate what you get. So whatever your interests are, it's pretty fabulous. Go to civicmedia.us/email and sign up for our Civic Media Digest. He joins us every other Thursday at this time to talk all things sports. The Acme Packing Company sports guru, Paul Noonan. Brewers, another big win yesterday. What's going on with the crew, Paul?
They have been one of the hottest teams in baseball, honestly. And they have been getting better performances from really their two stars on offense, which has been the driving force. Christian Yelich has actually been extremely hot. I feel like he's at the stage of his career where it's kind of just, if he's healthy, he's going to still produce like an all-star. And if the back tweaks or something like that, he doesn't. But he's been on an absolute tear. And he's also run into a nice little run of right-handed pitching. If you look at Yelich's splits on the year, he's actually one of the worst players in baseball against left-handed pitching, but his normal all-star self against righties. That's kind of the whole reason he's been bad. It's just he's had kind of a bad mix of that. So a nice run of pitchers that he can pick on and a nice run of actually being healthy has propelled him back to normal. And Jackson Chourio is looking like he might be starting to turn it around a bit as well. He has hit quite a few homers lately. He has been Jackson hasn't walked much this year. He's been impatient. But part of that is because when he swings at the first pitch, he is slugging like 770. Just 500 is good. 600 is all-star. 700 is like Hall of Fame level. So when he makes, if you throw him a meatball on the first pitch, there's a good chance he's going to hit it out. It's been a double-edged sword for him this year because if he misses, then he's down in the count, and he's quite bad down in the count. But he's been not missing lately, and he's started to adjust his game a little bit more to get back in counts. So he's 21 years old. He's a kid. the league adjusts to him. He's done a great job of adjusting back so far. There's going to be these little hiccups for Churio as he develops. But those two have powered this, in addition to Reese Hoskins just still being good. The other thing, but the other big one, last time I was on the show, we did a lot of complaining about Pat Murphy. And I want to be clear. While the results have been better for the Brewers over the last 10 games, the process hasn't really been that much different. The Brewers last year, the relief pitcher to pitch the most games in baseball appeared in 79 games. The Brewers have 2 relief pitchers on pace for 80 games this year. That is still too much, and he still is overusing guys like Abner Uribe and Nick Mears. They won yesterday 9-1. Was that yesterday? Yeah, it was. Nick Mears pitched
9-1.
It was 9-1. Nick Mears pitched in that game. Nick, you have 4 relievers who are extremely important to keep healthy and fresh. He is one of them. There was no reason to use him in a game. It wasn't 9-1. I think they were still kind of like 5-1, but still, that's a situation where you should rest your guys. The reason that this has worked for the Brewers lately is they had an off day, so they got to rest up everybody, which is good. And they actually got a couple of good starts deep into games that also saved things a little bit. But Pat is still using his best relievers too much, and that will cost you long term if you keep doing it. But it's been a good stretch. They had an off day to work. They managed to skate by a couple of blowouts, and they've been on fire. They're 5 games above 500. They're a half game out of the wild card right now. The Cubs have also been on a tear, so they haven't made up too much ground there, unfortunately. But they've kept themselves in the playoff race, and it looked like they were going to be sure sellers, 2 weeks ago, and now they look like dynamite. So all things good so far, but a couple of little worrisome trends still hanging out there for them.
I am delighted for Christian Yelich, largely because, what is he, 37? At 37, he's considered such an ancient human being. So I love to see him slamming him out of the park. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think is he that old? I feel like time for me doesn't matter anymore. I'm at the age where
if they're younger than me, they're just youngsters.
They're all youngsters. Yep. Yeah,
he is 33.
He's only 33.
Yeah.
Well, again, still in baseball years, he's almost dead.
Wow.
He is. Well, so Yelich is interesting because he actually has very stereotypical problems for a tall man in baseball. He used to be one of the fastest players in baseball. He has had a distinct drop off in sprint speed this year. Tall guys' knees tend not to age very well. The guy who reminds me of most is Corey Hart, the Brewers' former outfielder and first baseman. Corey Hart, when he came up with the Brewers, was the fastest guy in baseball. And just 1 year, his knees caught up with him, and he had to couldn't run anymore, had to move to first base. Yelich has always been like an 80% sprint speed guy in baseball, and he's fallen to like 60% this year. You can tell the knees are starting to get him a little bit, which is sad to see. He's 33. That's not old, but baseball age is a different thing altogether.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who was the former first baseman for the Brewers who what was his? He was the slowest guy I've ever seen in my life.
Jesus Aguilar?
Yes. When Aguilar hit the ball, power walk would be an overestimation of what he was doing. He would just be like, click. He knew he was going out. I was like, I'm just going to just dump. And anytime I see anyone run, I just think of him. I'm like, I don't understand why you don't even just try. You're just nothing. And so when someone says they're slow, I'm like, you're not as slow as Aguilar.
You are not. That team was actually one of the slowest teams ever to play. For the Brewers anyway. That was a team that had Aguilar and like Dan Vogelbach and a couple other big slow guys. They ended up not hitting as many doubles as you would project because of that. Like they were so slow that even like drives to the alley would turn into singles a lot of the time.
I remember Vogelbach. He was so sweet. Looked like he came out right off a farm to play baseball. And my friend used to say, I love Vogelbach because you just look so big, happy, and dumb.
Yeah. Indeed.
Paul Noonan is here. He is the sports guru for the Acme Packing Company, and he joins us every other Thursday to talk all things sports. Let's turn our gaze over to football a little bit, Paul. What are you thinking about the Packers?
So OTAs have started, and if you're looking for some good news on the Packers, and I know we all are, injury. This is the time of year when people show up in the best shape of their lives, and usually that doesn't matter. It's just something coaches say to make guys feel better about themselves. But we actually got some decent news on a couple of somewhat hidden injuries last year. Kenny Clark apparently played most of last year with bone spurs in his feet, and that is painful. He looked like a guy who was hurt. Kenny Clark when he's healthy, is one of the best interior pass rushers in the league, and he just was not himself last year. He did have surgery to fix that, and if you can get back a healthy, or at least a little bit healthier Kenny Clark, that will go a long way toward fixing what was one of the worst pass rushers in the league last year. The other one, Lucas Van Ness, their young outside rusher. They draft from Iowa, one of the most athletic guys in the league. I've been down on him a while because he seems to not have learned any pass rushing technique the entire time he was with the Packers or with Iowa, frankly. Turns out he was playing with a really significant hand injury, specifically a thumb injury. We don't know exactly what it was, but he basically said he couldn't use one of his hands at all last year. The edge rushing position is about two things: about being fast and powerful, and about using your hands properly. And if you can't use your hands, all that you can really do is bull rush, because you can't do, if everybody thinks about like Reggie White's moves, like the punch and the hump move and things like that, like a lot of this is getting inside guys and grabbing and throwing. And if Van Ness couldn't do that, it explains a lot of why it looked like he hadn't really come along as a pass rusher. And he claims he's healthy now. If the hands are good, he's a good bet to see a big leap forward going forward. And if you're looking for even better news on the Packer front, the Detroit Lions, with the class of the NFC North last year, went 15-2, only lost in the playoffs really because their entire secondary got hurt at the same time, suffered a surprise retirement of their center, Frank Ragnow. And that is a huge blow to them, because the Lions offense is almost entirely built on having the most elite offensive line in the league. Their quarterback, Jared Goff, really struggles under pressure. He's been good for several years because the Lions are the best at keeping quarterbacks clean. They lost Kevin Zeitler, their guard, to the Tennessee Titans this year. He's very old. And so they're going to have an entirely new interior offensive line. It's the first big turnover for that line in like 5 years. On top of all that, their best tackle, that's not true. They have two awesome tackles. Penei Sewell is really good too. He's young. But Taylor Decker, this will be his age 33 season. Offensive linemen tend not to age well into their mid-30s, just like Christian Yelich. And so the Lions are really built on this particular thing. They cannot really stand their offensive line to be anything else than elite. And Ragnow is only 28 years old. It was a very surprising move that they were unprepared for. And this will hurt them more than just about any other team in football. The Packers can withstand losing offensive linemen. They're great at making them from scratch. The Lions have not shown this. They have not replaced guys well. Like, they replaced it last year. They fixed it whole with Zeitler, who is 33. Draft and develop has not been there since Sewell, who was like a number 2 overall pick or something crazy like that. So this is good for the Packers.
Is there a reason why he's retiring so young? Is it health reasons? Is loss of interest? I mean, is it just, I'm out,
I'm done?
So there was a little bit on the injury front. He has definitely been beat up. He's been good his entire career. His 7-year career, he's been awesome. But he suffered a lot of nagging injuries. He's been hurt. And he's had some contract disputes with the team too. And the one thing we know about the Detroit Lions is nobody drives away Hall of Fame players like the Detroit Lions do. You can chalk this one up with Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, who also left kind of in their primes because the Lions were hard to deal with. And contract plus this is a lot of pain. And he was just like, no, I'm out. I'm done with this. I'm rich. I'm going to go enjoy life.
Hey, you got to give him props for that. Right? I mean,
I'd love to say that sentence out loud and it be true.
Absolutely. Same here.
Yeah.
In the couple of minutes we have left, Paul, let's talk about the NBA playoffs, which get underway.
NBA playoffs start tonight. Well, not the biggest NBA guy. Oklahoma City is going to be massively favored over the Pacers. The Western Conference in basketball is just a lot better than the Eastern Conference, where we find the Bucks. But the Pacers have, if nothing else, been a chaotic, fun. Evil. They obviously, as a Bucks fan, the Pacers are evil, but they are a good heel, and they have managed to make themselves a thorn in the side of a lot of teams just by kind of being jerks. And you can't they're definitely the worst of the two teams in the finals, but you can't discount the jerk factor. You get in people's heads, and it goes a long way. So we'll see how this goes. But it is. I know the NBA, the narrative is they're not happy about this because two of the smallest markets in the league. And while they both have huge stars, the the NBA has not done a great job of promoting stars outside of big markets, something we know in Milwaukee very well. Like,
No
people
kidding.
know Giannis, but Giannis certainly doesn't get the pub he should based on where he plays. And so maybe this will be a little bit of a wake-up call that it actually doesn't matter which market your stars are in. It matters that they're stars. So
be aware of the jerk factor, people. I love that.
The heels. Pacers are the
Halliburton
heels.
is fun to hate, man. He is he's great for that.
He is with the Acme Packing Company. Their sports guru, Paul Noonan, joins us every other Thursday. Thank you so much, Paul. We'll see you in a couple.
Thanks, Al.
Stay with us. We're going to wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it is the Supermarket Sweep Edition. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Look at me, gotta be Santa Theo. Yeah.
Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Galby on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up.
What?
After the 11 o'clock news, get your phone out.
Get your phone out.
Open up the Civic Media app and get ready to text in a keyword that you will get after 11 o'clock. Our statewide Text to Win Scotty Summer Contest is underway through next Friday. 4 chances every day for the next 2 weeks. 7, 11, 2, and 4 o'clock hours. You will have a keyword that you want to text in over the course of that hour. Then you are in the running for either $100 cash or a pair of Milwaukee Brewers Club level tickets. Everyone who enters, whether you win or not, entered into the grand prize drawing, a chance at a nice vacation, and we even give you gas to get there.
That's very, very nice. Be on the lookout for our voices, me and Jane, giving you the keyword during the Tom Hartman Show, and then feel free, do it, text in that word. Make sure spelling is correct.
Spelling counts.
Is key.
Yep, spelling counts. Congratulations to Mark from Hayward, an earlier winner, and also Paul in Green Bay, who was streaming on WGBW. Well done, guys. Again, our statewide Text to Win Scotty Summer Contest underway. Your next chance to enter after 11 o'clock in the Tom Hartman Show. Calvin, it is 10:54. That means it's time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at janesays@civicmedia.us. This is the Supermarket Sweep edition from NBC News. Nat Summer and Chelsea Chan with the byline. The headline reads, "Bull in a China shop? No, it's an elephant in a grocery store."
I've never heard that. You're like an elephant in a grocery store.
It is.
Doesn't work.
The shop owner, Plai Biang Lek, said the wild elephant helped himself to about 9 bags of rice crackers, a sandwich, and some dried bananas before leaving with a bag of snacks in his trunk.
That's the description is so wonderful because elephants, rather big animal. Not a lot of food in my head.
For an elephant.
Exactly. You think like, oh, it ate the entire produce section.
No. He's watching. He's watching his figure.
It's summertime. Got
Exactly.
bikini season. We're trying to keep it
Exactly.
tight. Keep it real tight.
The male elephant said the shop owner wandered over from a national park into their town of Pak Chong, which is northeast of Bangkok. In the video posted online, so there is a video element that you can watch once we get these posted in the show notes. The shop owner, Camploy Cacao, can be heard scolding the elephant as national park workers try to usher him out. Undisturbed, the animal continues munching on various things as he dusts the floor with crumbs and mud. Eventually, the elephant backed out of the store, a bag of snacks still clasped in his trunk. The elephant ate items that were purchased at the market this morning, including, again, the rice crackers, a sandwich, and some dried bananas.
If we're going to assume that this is a typical Asian elephant, because there are different kinds.
There are 2, yes.
I am just going to, and I am not an animal expert, and I don't own a grocery store, but I wouldn't yell at a nearly 9,000-pound creature that could step on me as easy as look at me. But I do like the fact that it was undeterred by the young. Like,
Not perturbed, yeah.
I do what I want.
Well, and again, what I love about this video and this article is it says that he could have destroyed this entire shop.
Yes.
Pretty easily.
And just by walking through, too,
Right, but
it makes one turn.
But he didn't.
Yeah.
And he backed out instead of, I don't know, taking out another plate glass window.
Yeah.
But they do say that he left some muddy prints on the floor and the ceiling.
Yeah.
Because he's so big that his back was rubbing the top of his head was up against the ceiling.
Oh, it's just so cute. Just want to pet it. I'm such a squish for animals.
We
now.
are all squishes for animals. Elephants, encounters between elephants and humans have occasionally been known to turn bad.
Yeah.
Glad to say this did not happen in this instance. And apparently he went back to the nature reserve and now he's full.
Hey, guys, I brought snacks.
I got snacks.
We're carving out today.
9 bags of rice crackers, a sandwich, and some dried bananas. And there you go. You got your lunch. That wraps up today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Coming up on the show tomorrow, it is Friday. We're going to talk to Michelle Velasquez from Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin. Should be a great discussion. Also, Dan Schaefer will be here, Civic Media's political editor and also the creator of the multi award-winning Recombobulation Area. Dan Schaefer here in hour number 2. Thank you, Greg and Calvin, and all of our engineers. Without you, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and for texting and for listening. It really does mean the world. I hope you find some joy today, even if it's just a little bit, and you have the chance to share it. We got news coming up next. Tom Hartman takes over 11 to 2. Todd Alba 2 to 4. Maggie Dawn 4 to 6. And Pete Schwaba with Nightlight from 6 to 8 p.m. Keep it right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We will see you tomorrow.